Welcome, my name's Sarah Bowder, and I'm here today with Robin Salverson, our SDSU Extension cow-calf field specialist near the Lemon area, and Bailey Johnson, a seed stock producer near Movage, South Dakota. And we're here to talk about our series on salvaging drought-stressed crops. Specifically today, we're going to talk about some water quality and water quality testing that really relates back to this drought topic. And although we're not talking specifically about crops, it's really important for our livestock producers to have access to good, high quality, clean water during dry times. And it can be a real challenge on years like this. So I'm going to turn it over to Robin first. She leads up the efforts for our livestock water quality testing with SDSU Extension. And Robin, can you tell us a little bit about why that test is important and maybe some offerings that we have with Extension to help people get those results?
Absolutely. So, water is the #1 nutrient. We oftentimes forget about that and always focus on protein or energy or having enough grass out there for the cows or hay or grazing corn stalks and all of those kinds of things. But in reality, water is the #1 nutrient. And without water, all of those feed resources are really, they're important, but not as important because they're not going to be consuming it because of the water. So, and obviously the drought this year has caused a lot of water quality concerns. Typically, we always think of that being an issue in western South Dakota, water quality issues or poor quality water. But unfortunately, we have seen poor water quality across the state of South Dakota. I've visited with several producers that have seen very high total salt content along with sulfates, and unfortunately seeing what we call polio in cattle, which is the blind staggers. And if we don't catch that in time, they go down, and they kind of do that whole flailing process and things, and sometimes we find them dead. So obviously health is a major concern when we have poor quality water, but even more importantly is just overall performance of those animals. If they don't have the water consumption, they're not going to eat like they need to. And so when we have that high total salt in the water, they're not consuming the water that they need. Not just the cows, but also the calves. Well, those calves are drinking more water than you think too. And so you're having lighter calves coming off the pasture in the fall when you're weaning, if those animals have been on that poor quality water. So those are some of the different issues and concerns that we see. And like I said, it's across the state of South Dakota. I hate telling horror stories. But that's what you usually hear when you hear about water quality, about losing, whether it's one head of livestock, just several head of livestock have occurred this year due to poor quality water. So something that we do here with SDSU Extension is we actually can do a quick, what we call a quick water test or a quick electrode conductivity test. And it just gives us a really good screening or baseline of where that water is for total salt. And it's actually a service that we provide for free. And so if it's good, it's good. If it's kind of that gray area, we may recommend sending it in for further testing. Or if it's real high, then we know that I recommend that water should not be the only water source for the animal. So it's a really great tool. And actually, if you can get your own meter and have your own meter, it's a really good tool too, because you can check those stock dams and dugouts prior to turnout. So that's a service we provide with SDSU Extension.
And here at Dakota Fest, where I've been at the last couple of days, Robin and her team, Warren Rushi and Adele Hardy, they've been giving out water meters that were available on a grant. So there are times when you can get your own water meter, or purchasing them. I'm not sure of the price, Robin, but producers can always come into a regional center and we will do that test for free to give them a baseline reading of what they've got there. So when we talk about water quality, is there a time when you suggest that producers always check their water? I mean, during dry periods like this, every year, is there a time of year? Any suggestions along those lines?
Well, definitely, obviously on drought years, and always prior to turnout into that pasture. It's usually we find out issues or concerns after turnout, and that's usually because you have a dead animal or a sick animal. And so prior to pasture turnout, so wherever, whatever pasture you're moving to next, make sure you check those. I actually recommend not only just during drought years that you should check your water, but also even on good years, because I have found that there are certain water sources that are poor every year, whether it's a good year or a bad year or a dry year. So a wet year or a dry year. So I actually do recommend that because just giving yourself a baseline. And like I said, it really does influence pounds of gain. So, and what do we sell? We sell pounds. We sell pounds. So the more pounds that we can bring off the grass, the more money you're making. So I do recommend testing really almost every year. Timing of the year, really, it's more valuable to do it prior to turnout. So that way you know. So.
Thanks, Robin. I think that's really good information producers can take and apply. But we have Bailey here with us as well. And Bailey, like I said, she's a seed stock producer up near the Mobridge area. And Bailey has mentioned to me that they primarily use dugouts and dams on their operation. So water quality testing is really important, especially on a year like this. Bailey, can you tell us a little bit about your experiences this year and how often you quality test, how much weight you put on the results of those tests?
Last week was about the time that we started doing our testing. We've been watering from different dams. We have a lot of dams that are dry or unusable because of mud. And what got us in touch with Robin is we actually had moved our cows and we were going to pump the water to them across a couple miles to get water to them. But when we got them there, and this is the importance on testing prior to moving them in, we tested the water after we moved them in because they absolutely refused to drink it. And we found out that we were really, really on the poor quality side with that water, which kind of goes back to something I would say for other producers. Like, you might look at your water source and you might have a really big dam and expect it to be completely fine. But our best water test came back from our smallest dam. So it's not always going to be size or quantity of the water that you have that's going to be the best. This morning we pulled another submersible pump so that we could rotate our cows into a different pasture and keep good water in front of them. Got everything like that set up so that we can move the cows. And Robin came out. She did a quick test on a lot of dams for us and tested our water. We sent, like she said, the samples that are in the gray area. She sent those in for us, and we were fortunate that they came back. They were suitable to use. So
there is some additional testing we can do as well, right, Robin? That Bailey's mentioning.
Absolutely. So we can send into a lab, whatever lab of your choice, and we can actually do what we call a livestock suitability. So it really pinpoints the different minerals and which ones might be a concern or not. And so, for instance, sulfates is one that we have a typical target on because that causes that symptom called polio, but also just sodium chloride, or everybody's talking about the alkali or the white around the dugouts and dams. I mean, that is, and that's alkalinity, and so that can also be looked at in those tests too. So, yep, we can do that. Absolutely.
Well, I think that's really telling, Bailey, that you had some dugouts that you just flat couldn't use. Is there any telling factors that you think producers should look for, Bailey or Robin, in a water source that is contaminated or isn't suitable, or is it sometimes something that looks clear and smells good and it's still not suitable? Do we ever see things we can smell, taste, see?
I'm glad Bailey brought up that visual. The visual appearance is not always a telling factor, and that a big dam isn't always the best versus a small dugout. Because typically I will go out to a water source, or someone brings in water to me, and I'll say, do you think this one's good or bad? And they always say the clearest one is good. And it's usually the worst because nothing wants to live in there. So, I mean, unless it's a well, obviously, then that's typically good. But if it's nice and clear, I have some samples here. This is a really nice and clear one. And here's one, it's a little bit hard to tell on the screen, but it's a bit yellow and things like that. So looks is always a bit deceiving. But I would also say, though, if there's wildlife around it, that's always a good sign because they're consuming from it. If there's bugs and little things running around in it, that's a good sign. But clear is not always good. Actually, clear is typically bad.
So the best way to really know is to get that test done. And we do offer that test at all of our regional centers, correct, Robin?
Yep, we offered in all the regional centers and some county offices across the state. And you can go on our website, on the SDSU Extension website, and find those various county offices and all 8 regional centers that do that testing. So,
and we also have a list of feed and water quality testing labs. If you need additional testing as well, you can search for that on our site.
Yep, we sure do.
I think we've covered this in pretty good detail. Robin or Bailey, do you have any extra comments you want to close with for producers to remember?
I just want to also remind people, you know, winter water is important too, but thankfully during the winter, their requirements are a lot less because they don't have a cap on their side. And so thankfully their consumption isn't as good either, or as much, I should say, I apologize. But just also winter water is, you know, if you're watering off, I know we just tested one for Bailey this last weekend for that matter, which is going to be their winter water, but we still tested it because that's going to be their main source and that's what they're going to be pumping out of. So with Bailey and her family, I mean, it's very unique. They have to rely fully on surface water, and that's a big challenge. But I applaud them in how they manage that and how they test it. And I think she made a really good point too, is when their cattle completely refuse to drink it. And that tells me, obviously, they go out and check their animals every day almost. And I do know they do that because she made the comment that they go out and check their water every day. And I think that's hugely critical. So, and if you move cows and they're trying to get back to where they came from and they're breaking through gates and fences and things like that, that's a very good indication your water is bad. So, but I know Bailey, you guys have done a lot of testing and probably have heard really some terrible horror stories too about poor quality water. So.
Well, thank you to both of you for joining me for this segment. We hope that producers that have any questions, feel free to contact us at the Extension website, extension.sdstate.edu. All of our information is under Our People. And Bailey, I'm sure that you're hoping for some rain up there. We all
Absolutely.
are. Wish you the best with your water sources. So thank you all for joining us. And we want to thank the South Dakota Soil Health Coalition, who partnered with SDSU Extension on this effort to get this information to producers. Thank you.